Hello everyone and welcome to another podcast episode. Now before we get into this, I'd just like to talk briefly about the work that I'm doing in schools. I talk to students, teachers and staff telling my story of childhood sexual abuse and the common things that I've learned since doing this work. Now this is a story of inspiration and empowerment, so you would have thought that all the schools would be quick to book me, but that is not the case. They're still hesitant and worried about this topic. But what I'm saying is that I will at least be speaking to one student when I go into these schools that is going through a sexual abuse situation and not telling anyone about it. But it's not just that. My story is also an opportunity for the other students that are not going through a sexual abuse situation to see that it doesn't matter how hard what they're going through right now is. It may feel like hell in this moment, but you can get through it and you can lead a successful life, have a successful career and successful friendship groups following trauma in your childhood. I believe this is extremely important. Now, if you're following my work, you know my vibe, you know my intentions, please spread the word. Spread the word, give my website jeremyindica.com to your local school or the school that your son or daughter go to. And also if you'd like to support what I do, please visit somethingtosayofficial.com. I cannot do all of this alone. I need your help and this has to be a team effort. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast episode. And as you know, with this subject, I'm trying to get into the depths of it as I release more episodes, coming at different angles on this topic as a whole. Now, last year, I was speaking at a conference which was held by a charity called Brave Futures. And a couple of their staff went onto the stage and went through a case study of a young child that they had through the work that they do. And I literally was gobsmacked at the information, the valuable information that they were giving us about what it's like to interact with young children who have been through a crime like this. And I also just felt so empowered by how strongly the staff members were speaking about this situation that they'd seen through their charity. And I really just thought it would be incredible for us to speak with some of the workers at this charity, because we often forget that there are frontline workers out there and there are people who are working, as I said, on the front line with these young children doing incredible, valuable jobs. And I believe that they're actually unsung heroes. And I wanted to get into that a little bit more. So I contacted Brave Futures and asked if one of their staff members would be willing to come onto the podcast, and they agreed. So today we have Caroline on the podcast. And hello, Caroline. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for agreeing to this. I know that your charity do some incredible work, and I'd love to just get into that. So could you introduce yourself, your role, and a little bit about your charity, please?
Okay, well, my name's Caroline, and I'm one of the child sex abuse practitioners at Brave Futures. I've been with the charity for 2 years. And our role is to support children that have been sexually abused from the age of proper little tiddlers, like from 3 and 4 years old, right up until they're 21. Okay. And that can be an ongoing service. They can come in, have a service, and then in a couple of years' time, they might feel they need to come back and have a top up because other things have happened in their lives, maybe puberty, things like that. It's changing all the while how they feel about themselves.
Right. And that's a great point just to start off with, because we could be under the impression that, let's say you were to get a child in who's 7 years old, just as an example, you were to work with them, you do the process, and then they're all good for the rest of their life. That's not always going to be the case, because like you said, as they go through different ages, they go through puberty, for example, they're going to start looking at what happened to them from a different lens, and therefore they may want to come back to your service. So I know I'm so curious to know just some more brief details about the service.
Okay, well, what we offer is we offer a program where children will come in and we will offer we have like getting to know you sessions. We offer containment work, kind of working on their self-esteem, their coping mechanisms. Once we feel that we've got them into a place where they're confident with their worker and they're feeling ready to explore their abuse, we would then go into the trauma work. And that again, that's very much at the child's pace. It's whether the practitioner feels that they are ready, whether the child feels they are ready. And we begin to unpick some of the stuff that's happened with them, some of the questions that they're asking, some of the, beliefs, the blame, the shame, the guilt. We kind of want to pull all that to pieces and try and make sense of it for them.
Wow.
We'll cover the grooming process, because a vast majority of these children are unaware that they've been groomed and that this has been a process that has happened to them. So we kind of want them to understand it so that they can look at themselves and make sense of what happened and not feel the shame and the guilt, that they can kind of look at it and look at themselves and think, do you know what, actually, I was a victim, but this is no longer going to define me. And that's where we want to get the children to. We want them to feel empowered. We want them to feel good about themselves and give them their confidence back.
Come on, that's just so incredible. I love that so much. And it's such a the foundations of what I'm trying to achieve here too, just to let people know that, what happened to them doesn't need to be the end of them. They can still build that life, and the work that you're doing with these children is so important that you can get there at that stage of their life. And when you're talking about the services, this process that you go through with these young people, I can really see how that can be done with a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old or even a 15-year-old. But then when I start to think about prepubescent children, they're still so childlike, they're still playing with toys. And how do you even begin to open a conversation like that with someone of that age?
They're children. They are like any other child their age. They want to play, they want to feel good, they want to be happy. So we do stuff that is play based. We will do activities where they're drawing, playing, making things, and then you kind of, in a very gentle way, you might steer a conversation in a certain way. You might play a game where toys are positioned in a certain way so that they can see how things happen. And one example of what we do is I call it the 3 islands.
Okay.
And we have an island where you'd live with the people you'd want on your island. You'd have another island where people who you knew could come and stay and could come and visit. Then you'd have an island that maybe people that you weren't quite sure of would go. But then we have shark infested water.
Wow.
And that is such a powerful way for these children. You can gently say, who's going to be on your nice island? Who's going to be there? And they'll generally put them, the parents or, people that they're really close to. We often, as practitioners, get put on the nice island, which I'm glad to say. But the really interesting bit is the shark infested water, because for some children, they won't put anything there. That's kind of quite a big step. But I've had a number now who put their perpetrator in shark infested water.
Wow.
And that is such a moment for them, because they kind of like they're actually positioning that person where they deserve to be, nowhere near them, not safe, not, and that's a really, and that works with really little ones. That can be, I think, 5-year-old, 6-year-old would understand how you were doing that.
Wow.
And what the result was that we wanted.
Okay. And when they put their perpetrator or their abuser onto that island, it must be like such a breakthrough moment.
Oh, massively, because that's them then letting you know they're ready to talk. They're ready to kind of identify and address, that there's this naughty person, this person that has made them feel very uncomfortable and who has scared them.
Okay. And do you ever find that it takes some stages to get to a stage where they understand that that person in their life is doing wrong? Because I can only imagine, when we're talking about 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, which breaks my heart, by the way. And do you sometimes feel that are they sometimes coming to you thinking that actually nothing is wrong and that that's all okay? Or do you see is it common to see that they're deep down, they actually know?
It's really difficult because some children actually miss their abuser in a weird way, because it could be a family member, it could be a trusted family member, where actually that relationship has been loving, the wrong type of loving. But for that child, it's still someone who's been significant in their life who is now no longer there. So
Right.
it's a range of emotions for these children. I think for some of the children where the abuse has been maybe violent or aggressive, that's empowering, you know, that you're going to feed this nasty person to the sharks. um but it's a complete spectrum of how children feel about their abusers.
Okay, so that means you as the practitioner have to be so skillful in reading the room,
Mm, absolutely,
reading the child,
absolutely.
where they're at, what their current understanding is, and how you're going to address that.
We have their when their referral comes in, we have like a brief outline of the abuse that they've endured. Obviously, they then come in for an assessment, which is when you get a really good idea about where this child is and how that child is feeling, what stage they're at, and where they're holding their abuse.
Okay.
For some of them, they'll come in and they just want to tell you everything, and that's really overwhelming for both them and us.
Wow.
And you have other children that will literally, you'll have to be, it's a very slow process, and it's a
Mm.
delicate and a gentle process.
Mm. How do you how do you do this job and not be in tears constantly?
I absolutely love this job, and I
Okay.
feel that it's hard. And some of the referrals that I've had, literally, you have to read it, put it down, walk away, and
Wow.
take a breath, because it's horrible, and that will stay with you.
Mm.
But it almost, in a way, if I was to burst into tears and to become emotionally involved, I'm not useful to that child.
Right.
I need to be that person that is strong. I don't look at them with, with pity. Although I'm feeling dreadful for this, for them. But we have to have that level of, we're here to help. We're here
Mm.
to help you understand it. And I think if a child saw me and I burst into tears, they're then going to think, oh my word, this is terrible. I am disgusting. This is wrong. This is all these things. So we have to sort of take our time, and understand where this is going and where they've been and what our role is.
Good on you. That just sent a shiver up my spine. Like, that is so incredible, because as children, we're always looking at the adults around us to see
Mhm.
how bad what we said was, or how we're almost like reflecting their emotion.
Mhm.
It's like when a child falls over, right? They straight away look at their mum or dad to see, was that bad or not, and then they go with that emotion. So yeah, what you're saying is, if you're the strong person that they're coming to speak to, they will feel strong to speak as much as they want to.
Yeah, and some of the times these children are telling us stuff that is really unnatural, that you
Mm,
wouldn't expect a child to understand or to feel. And so we can't sit there with look of shock or horror on our faces, because we want them to feel that actually we're safe. This is a safe space. We believe them, and we're ready to hear their story and to help them.
amazing. It's going to be so confusing for us as adults to think about, if you've never had an experience like this, to think about what it's like to have something sexual happen to you way before nature has taken its course on your body to make you even interested in sexual things.
Mhm.
Right. So again, I'm talking about prepubescent ages. It must be so confusing for a child, especially if that abuse has been communicated as, this is love, this is care, this is something that we should be doing. And you must have to take it, I'm guessing you have to take it really slowly with them, to, if you notice that child is thinking that it was love and care, and it was all almost positive, it must be a very slow process to educate them and help them understand that actually that was wrong, because you can't just tell them no straight away. I'm guessing all of this, by the way.
Mhm. No, absolutely, because you don't want that child to feel that they've been dirty, or that they've done
Okay.
something that's been naughty. So, you know, often, especially with younger children, and where they've been, that it's been taught to them that this is a loving situation, or this is a fun, or it's a game, they then will have their own issues because they'll then be going around to other children or other adults and grabbing and touching them in places that's inappropriate. So it's a really slow and gentle process of kind of like, about our bodies being our own, and where is safe to touch, and where is a kind place to touch, and where is, where are places that you shouldn't be touched. And we teach them how to, have their respect for their own bodies, and where is safe, so where is nice to touch, because obviously the body does respond to touch, and if it's been abuse of a loving nature,
Yes.
it can feel nice, and then that is equally confusing.
Yes.
So it's kind of that bit is always a bit of a minefield, and it's kind of just making sure that they understand in a positive way that touch is something that is nice, but it's on your terms, and it's where it's safe, and it's where it's in a loving environment, that it's a safe, loving environment.
So true. Can I ask how long you've been doing this job for?
I've been with the charity now for 2 years.
Okay. And is this the first time you've carried out this role?
Yeah.
Okay.
Prior to this, I worked with children who had been victims of trauma, but not sexual abuse.
Okay. Have you seen over the years that you've been in this field that with the education system changing, completely different to how it was when we were at school, for sure. Have you seen what kind of changes have you seen in the children that have been coming in your previous job and this job, or do you think it's staying the same?
No, I think it's changing. I think we're getting a lot more cases of peer on peer sexual abuse, and it's, we've got children as young as 8 and 9 accessing hardcore porn, and so their first idea of a sexual relationship is really off kilter, because they're kind of thinking that actually girls and boys want to be put in a chokehold. They want to have, anal sex as an initial thing, and so it's kind of the change, and with the access through their mobile phones, through computers, through the internet and everything, to access porn is waking them up far too early, and so these children aren't emotionally ready to be doing what they're doing, and then of course they feel traumatized. Something's happened to them, and afterwards they're like, oh my goodness, I wasn't ready for that.
Wow. That's so scary, isn't it?
It's terrifying. That, and some of the sexual activities that the kids are doing is stuff, it's hardcore stuff, it's kind of the kink end of stuff. It's not normal sex like in a normal relationship where you was first, when you're first having your first sexual encounter with someone. It should be gentle and slow. This is extreme.
I think your phrase of like it's waking them up way too early is a really good way to put it, because in conjunction with what I was trying to explain about prepubescent, there's nothing in your nature before puberty that's sexual. There's nothing in your brain that's sexual. You've got no interest in it. In fact, you think the whole thing's yucky. You think boys and girls are yucky. But this whole pornography, access to pornography at any age, is really waking that area up of them way before nature was meant to.
We've had kids that, young enough where they should have been watching CBeebies are watching hardcore porn.
Wow.
And so you imagine when you sit your child in front of the telly, in front of CBeebies, that they're taking in everything that's going on that screen.
Yes.
Well, the same thing is happening with porn.
Yeah.
They're taking in everything, and porn stars are actors and actresses.
Yes.
But a child would understand that as being real. So it's very confusing for them.
Wow. I hope that something like age verifications and things are very quick to be put on pornography. I think we're like lagging way behind behind the times with that. Can we talk a little bit about this peer-on-peer sexual abuse? I did hear a statistic that 1/3 of all reported sexual abuse is peer-on-peer. When you get a referral for a child, a minor who has been sexually abused from another minor, can you explain a few complications of that? And also, do you deal with the child who has carried out the sexual abuse?
That is something we're going to be looking into doing further down the line. At the moment, I think we're piloting it
Okay.
in Norfolk,
Okay.
and hopefully, if that's successful, it will be spread out to Suffolk as well. I think the trouble with the peer-on-peer stuff is there's such a mixed bag of emotions, because to start with, it's kind of like it's fun and it's, there's all this interest and everything, and then it happens, and then I think it's terrific guilt afterwards and a shame, because it's generally spread around the school. Generally, if there's been pictures that have been taken, they're spread throughout the school. So all of a sudden, this should have been a positive time for them is a horrific time for them. And it's like it's just woken up things that they're too young, they're emotionally too young
Mm.
at 12, 13 to be
Mm.
doing the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
And to be fair, it's hard for both sides, because I think some boys are getting very mixed messages. The stuff that they're saying to each other via, the pictures that they're sending each
Yeah.
other. It's not just girls that are the victim, boys are
Yes.
the victims as well.
Yes, I do agree on that, and I do need to speak more on my platforms about that, because I've often talked about boys being the aggressor and girls being the being on the receiving end all the time, but boys are also on the receiving end with the
Absolutely.
adverts that are popping up on their social media, with the lure of pornography, with what's going on their WhatsApp groups and Snapchat and all of those things. So um it's a really dangerous time for those
Mm.
young people. Would you be able to speak about some kind of case study or a story of any sort that you would be able to talk to us about?
I've got, there is lots of, young children, young people that I've worked with. And it goes from kind of what I would just, the sort of the lower level stuff to the really hard hitting stuff. And I think it's the hard hitting stuff that um, will never not shock me,
Right.
because it's the kind of stuff where it's the level of abuse, the length of the abuse, the kind of, the video evidence of children being sexually assaulted for hours on end, and it's that type of thing, will always be upsetting. Children being told that they're training to be good at sex, that, this
Okay.
is you're in training, and, to play sex games, the use of vibrators, butt
Wow.
plugs, and it's all this kind of this mass grooming process that these children go through, where they're told that, this is amazing, you're doing a good job,
Yeah.
high fived after
Wow.
they've been abused. So it's kind of, the range is enormous.
Wow. Core, that's so real, I
Mm.
mean, those are things that we never ever think about, I
Mm.
mean, just as general public, to think of a child being told being trained to play sexual games with vibrators and plugs and high-fived is absolutely harrowing.
Mm.
um how do you take care of yourself after hearing stories like that?
We at Brave Futures are really good at looking after each other. And I think
Okay.
when you first come into this type of work, I think, you can underestimate the effect it's going to have on you.
Mm.
And I think that we're very good at speaking. We're very good at saying how it is. You can come in from a session and you can be, wow, that was really heavy going. Some of us will kind of sit and have 5 minutes time out and just to process what you've heard. And then we as a group will discuss it. We also have clinical supervision, so that
Right.
we're being looked after, and also how we're managing our cases to make sure that we're managing ourselves and our children in the best way possible.
Okay, because somebody asked me quite recently, they said, as you continue doing this work every day, all day, you are reading stories, you are involved in this very traumatic topic, including your own experience. And they said to me, all you are doing is putting all of this, you've got a backpack on, and you are just putting all of this in your backpack and it's getting overloaded. How are you going to offload it? You know, how are you going to take things out of your rucksack? Because when it gets too heavy, it's going to pull you down. And I actually didn't have an answer to that because I don't really have any processes or that I go through. But something like what you are doing at Brave Futures, where you're a team, yeah,
Absolutely.
you're a team
Absolutely.
all aiming for the same thing, and I kind of get the feel that you're all like, enough is enough. Let's actually do something about this. Let's help these children that are going through something. Because what would be your worry if a child has gone through sexual abuse and they are not attended to?
I think it's just a lifelong sentence. It's a
Mm,
lifelong sentence of sadness, of not trusting. It will shatter so many relationships as you move further down the line, because there is so much stuff that is locked away that will weigh heavy. You know, mental health will be affected, physical health, you know, relationship forming, and how essentially how they go on to parent their own children.
yeah,
They will be risks.
yeah. So the early intervention, like what you're doing with the different approaches depending on the different ages,
Yeah,
is going to
absolutely.
be crucial to minimize the risks of their life spiraling out of control in different
Yeah,
areas in different
yeah,
ways, for the rest of their lives.
yeah.
I feel like the things that you're explaining and the job that you everybody at Brave Futures and other similar charities are doing, which is just truly remarkable and admirable. Um, if you came across a young person that said they wanted to get into that line of work too, it's interesting because would you advise them or encourage them to do that, or what would your response be to let's say an 18-year-old 19-year-old that's studying the subject, that's like, that's something that I want to do in the future?
I think there's studying it, looking at it on paper and
Mm,
reading it is one thing.
mm,
Actually being there when I can read a referral or have an assessment and
mm.
I can process it and think, right, I know where I'm going to go with this. I can see exactly where I'm going. But then when you meet that child,
Huh.
it's a different ballgame, because I'm always, it's little hands when they come in, and you know, and they stand there as a just a gorgeous little person, and I always look at their hands because I realize how small they are.
Oh,
and that is the bit that you have to be strong with, because that's the bit that will you can read all the horrific stuff and it's
yeah,
upsetting,
yeah,
but when you see the person that's actually happened
yeah,
to, it's a very
yeah,
different emotion. And you
yeah.
know, that will get me every time.
Do you think the world could do with a little bit of that shock if we could spread that a little bit?
Mhm.
You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that sexual abuse has been such a taboo subject.
Yeah,
And we always think it's, you know, it's dirty old men that, you know, like back in the day of when I was young, it was the local flasher. And
yeah.
actually, this is an incredibly sophisticated,
Mm,
corrupt
mm,
way of working, the way, you know, the perpetrators will work. It's not, you know, they're not clumsy, they're not stupid.
yeah.
And it's become a very, you know, it's become very different. It's not, you know, it's not the flashing, it is on the internet, it is, you know, the dark web. It's there's a purpose and there's a community,
Yes,
unfortunately.
yes, yes. I have started to see that there is a community of people also
Yeah.
that are clubbing together to do this and work out better techniques on how to do this. But as we also know, this could be also somebody who is not linked with others that are doing this, but are just going for it. That where they're within the family, sometimes they're even blood relations,
Mhm.
which must make things very complicated for the child.
I think in those situations where it's a family member, that's very hard to unpick, because there's obviously they've had experience of that person being kind, being loving, being told by the rest of the family that they're a lovely person, and
Yeah,
you know, go and spend time with granddad, go and spend time with uncle, or you know, auntie. And so that's really confusing, because for that child, that alone time with that adult is terrifying.
yeah,
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 that everyone around them is telling them
yeah,
I'm a person, you
yeah.
know.
And how
And so,
confusing that must be if you're 6 years old.
yeah.
I mean, I just want to say, what is driving? So this is a side topic that I don't want to. It's not the point of this conversation, but what is driving somebody somebody's brain to find a 6-year-old sexually attractive is completely beyond me, but something that I feel that we need to investigate and understand, because we need to stop the people from doing this before they do it. But that's another topic. What would you say? What would you like to see happen or change in the public? Like I just mentioned that I believe it would be a great idea. I would love to see people shocked with real life stories, but I feel like it's still so taboo and it's still so triggering for people, understandably so, that I could never post a real story about a 6-year-old and an account on it, because it would just get pulled off the internet, because we're not ready for that conversation. Does that frustrate you?
The thing is, and this is like, it's a difficult thing to say, but if one of these children had died, it would be global news.
Wow.
And it would be like the Victoria Columbier baby P. It would be on that scale. But because these children don't die, it's brushed under the carpet.
Such a good point.
And it's shocking that it would take a death of a child for this to be, for people to step and take. And I still don't think they would believe it. I still think it would be too uncomfortable for people to think that this goes on.
Yeah.
But it absolutely does.
It's such a good point that you make. And why is it that we feel so uncomfortable that this is going on? Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think it is that, like, nobody's, what did I hear the other day? Nobody's like it's so shocking, but everybody knows that it's going on, but nobody wants to face it. Do you think it's like because it's so inhumane?
I think so, because if you look at anything like with animal cruelty, that is put out there. People look at it and they look away, and it's horrific and everything. I think this is just almost too much.
Yeah.
Almost too much for people to believe that it happens. And I don't think they would believe that the length of time it can go on for. For some children it's years. I don't think they would believe the depravity, the humiliation. And that's hard for people to get their head around. We like to be comfortable. We don't like to be made to feel uncomfortable. And this, unfortunately, is very uncomfortable.
Right. And that was the humiliation of that small child. I think it's because it's children too that we can't get our head around it. And that story that I opened this podcast with, what initiated me contacting Brave Futures, was the story that got told by your staff at that conference. Was two sisters, two twin girls, and it was just the way that they had been groomed was just so scary and sad. It was a terrible thing. And when these children are not saying anything because they've been groomed to not say anything, do you feel like the public still misunderstands the actual complexity of it?
I think so, because some children will come in and will tell you everything.
Okay.
Other children will come through the service but will never actually discuss their own abuse.
Okay.
And that they're the ones that kind of they don't want to talk about it, but they want to heal from it. And we never push a child, this isn't part of what we do, that you have to come in and tell us everything that happened. A lot of the children will tell us nothing. That we know, it's like an unsung, they know that we know. And and it's kind of not the elephant in the room, because it doesn't need to be that, but they feel believed. And I think that's the biggest part for them, to have not been believed. They don't need to sing it from the rooftops. It's not something that often that they feel very still confused over, and it's something it's very raw for them, and it's their story. I often say, one of my little girls once said that she knew that she'd been abused, and she remembered what happened, but she put it in a box, and the box was inside her, and she had the key. Wow. And she knew that if she needed to get out and process anything, she had the key to unlock it again. But it was locked away and it was shut away. And that was after we'd done, quite a number of sessions. And that was, and that really blew me away, because she wasn't even that old, and it was one of those ones that was like, wow, that's incredible. And that's what we want. We want them to feel in control of it, because that's the one thing they've not had all the way through, is
Right.
control.
Right. And how do you build trust with these young people, these children? How do you get them to understand that you're there to help them?
It takes time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of getting to know them. It takes a lot of understanding that, that we are a safe space, that we're not pushing them. We don't sit there and go, right, tell us what happened, tell us about the abuse. It's you build a relationship, and this relationship can be really strong. You can get very attached to the kid, and they can with you and everything, and that's when they feel safe, and that's when you can kind of grow the work with that child. But the trust side of things takes time.
Yeah, because you want them to know, essentially you want them to know that you're there to help them, and you won't push them in a direction that you don't want to go. That island, the 3 island thing has really resonated with me. Like, I think that's so powerful for those very, very young children still playing with toys. Are there any other techniques that you could speak about that would be interesting for the audience to hear?
One of the other ones that we do is a safe space. And for the younger children, we'll ask them to create what would make them feel safe. What would a safe space be? And often this is done through drawing, painting.
Yeah.
And then we can label what they how they've done it, and it's that work is incredible, because some of the children, the detail is just out of really, really intense. One little person had a rainbow over their bed, and and there was gates around, and and they can make it look however they want. It can be complete fantasy, or it can be something that's very real. And for some of the young people, the reality was a baseball bat at the side of their bed.
Wow.
That was as far as we got. But for some of the others, it's a really good opportunity for them to sort of show you through art, drawing, painting, creating, playing, what makes them feel safe.
Okay. So once you've done the sessions, right? What would be the result that would make the charity and your procedure be like, okay, our work is done?
I think when you've got a child that's leaving feeling empowered, with the realization that they're not to blame, the realization that they maybe want to share their story, maybe that they just feel happy again, they feel that they can smile, they feel that they can walk tall, which is which is important.
Yeah.
And I think as well, some of the children, when they're ready, when it's come to a very natural end, they no longer kind of need our input, and that is lovely. It's saying goodbye, but it's kind of, as well, it's like brilliant,
Okay.
And they've also got the realization they can come back, which I think makes them feel very safe.
And then how do you feel as a worker when you get to that stage?
Fantastic.
Oh, come on.
Fantastic, because I've had situations where I've done a piece of work and I come away and I think I did really well today. That was the point. That was the point where you think, right, I got you today, and you got me, you got it. So yeah, it's good.
And that would be considered as a win from your side?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've given that child some tools, empowerment, encouragement to go and live their life in the best way that they can, following what happened to them. And that must make you feel so proud about the work that you're doing. It's so meaningful.
I'm incredibly proud of everything we do here.
Yes.
The charity, every single person that works here is amazing.
Yeah.
And we all want the same end goal.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing, to make that every child that comes through our door to feel that we have done a good job.
And everything that you can possibly do for that child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there ever a situation where the child will come in, you'll do your initial assessment, and then you start kicking off the sessions and you're like, they're not ready for this?
Yeah. Sometimes it will be that you're not the right worker. And we have that flexibility, that you can kind of tell that maybe the relationship isn't forming as well as it could be. So
Okay.
we have, if we've got the flexibility, we'll say to that child, maybe I'm not right for you. Maybe and we always encourage them to, I'm not going to be offended. This has to be the right fix.
Right.
And so if it's
Okay.
not the right fix, we would see if we could find a way around it.
And if you feel like the sessions are making the child, like I mentioned, the child isn't ready for this, that they're not ready to talk about it at all. Is there ever a situation like that?
Yeah, and we would gauge that very, very carefully.
Okay.
We don't push.
Yeah.
There's no pushing. There's no kind. If we don't feel a child's ready to access the trauma work, then we just wouldn't do it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
always, when the child first comes in, there's like we have like a working agreement that, if they're uncomfortable, you can tell by their body language. You'll have some children that you'll be talking, having a great time, then all of a sudden you'll want to talk about feelings, and that little glaze comes over their
Right.
face. And that's when you realize, right, okay, we're not ready. We
Right.
won't go there today.
Okay. Okay. So Brave Futures are working in Norfolk
Norfolk and Suffolk.
in England.
Mm.
And referrals can come in from anywhere?
Yeah, within that area, within Norfolk and
Within
Suffolk.
that area.
Yeah.
And what would you say the charity's main aims are, or like the ethos, or anything else that you want to say about the charity?
I think for the charity, it's so that every child can have a safe space, be believed, and be empowered.
Yes, amazing. And what are some of the other challenges that you face? The reason why I asked about the referrals thing is because I can only imagine that if a school were to refer, but the parents don't want it referred, are there any challenges that you come across that? And I understand that sometimes you may not be able to talk about these things coming from the charity, but if you can't, just let me know.
Mm. No, it's difficult because sometimes you'll have a child that wants to come, but you'll have parents who are massively unsupportive.
Right.
That is a challenge, and obviously that then depends on the age of the child, because
Yes.
there's no point a child coming here and having all this good stuff to then go home and then have it taken away, that the parents aren't on board. So really this needs to be, a sort of like a joint practice, like where
Right.
the parents, and the majority of the parents are supportive. Some of the parents find it incredibly hard,
Yes, of course.
and that's a challenge within itself.
Mm.
But there are occasions when you will have an unsupportive parent, especially if it's maybe maybe like a mother's partner or something like that who's been accused.
Understood.
That can be, that's difficult.
Brings its complications. And what would you say to parents? What advice would you have for parents in the wealth of knowledge that you have, seeing it firsthand, seeing the abuse firsthand? What advice would you have for parents in terms of prevention?
Prevention, I think it's just, supervising what they're accessing.
Yeah.
See, what have they got on their phones?
Yeah.
Well, who are the friends they're hanging around with?
Yeah.
Having boundaries, naming their body parts, being more realistic about it, so that when your child is coming to you and saying someone's touched my penis, we all know what they're talking about,
Right.
rather than it being, mummy, someone's touched my ding ding, or that makes it all very complicated. So I think, being really open, honest, and kind of it not being a taboo subject, it being something you can discuss, and it is discussed, and if there's questions, answer them.
Yeah, brilliant. So open and honest conversations about the realities of life. And when they're small children, it hasn't got to be about sex, just their bodies at the very least. Yeah, because we want to stop this from happening in the first place. That's the aim.
What we don't want is for parents to become paranoid, and we don't want there to be suddenly, that they're putting fear in their children, because children will explore their own bodies and will explore each other's bodies. It's perfectly natural, and it's one of those things, that it's just what we do as human beings. Girls and boys are different, and girls will look at boys' bits and boys will look at girls' bits. It's just managing it, and it's managing it in an open, honest way, and kind of having those conversations that yes, boys have a penis, girls have have vagina. It just being a very natural, organic conversation.
Brilliant. I love it. And can you tell us about a recent win that you had as in your own work, or even as a charity, whichever one you'd like?
I think I had a win with a child that I've been working with, and this child came to session and just cried for the, head down, wouldn't make eye contact, I mean, so low. And this went on for weeks. And I was kind of thinking, I'm not sure that we're going to get anywhere or anything like that. And I just, as we developed, then the head began to come up, eye contact, laughter, and there would be little bits like that. And then we did an incredible piece of work where they wrote a letter to their abuser.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, this child wrote frantically and angrily and with passion. And afterwards, I said, what should we do with this letter? Tore it into tiny pieces.
Wow.
Put it in the bin, spat in the bin. And it was just like one of those moments. It was like, yes.
Come on.
Yeah. And that was because for that part of the trauma work is difficult, because you've got these kids to a point where you've discussed what's happened, you've discussed how they feel, you discuss how they've got to this point, and then for them to have the opportunity to write their letter, to say how they feel, it's such a powerful piece of work, and it's so brave for them to do it.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they are exposing everything.
And the action of writing it would have helped them get that off their chest,
Yeah. I mean, I've done it before with, and I've seen kids physically shake.
Oh my God.
The relief of having that out, because sometimes as well, especially with the quiet ones, they won't be able to verbalize it, but to write it down, to have it there in black and white, and then either screw it up, take it out, stamp it in a puddle, tear it up. We become really creative at this point. We'll kick it around the room.
Yeah.
It's going to make them feel good. I like that part of it to be,
yeah,
physical. And some of them will just want quiet. I always offer whether they want me to be in the room with them while they do it, or if they'd like me to leave the room, and that is an option. But that's a powerful piece of
Wow. Okay, let's go to the other side of the scale. One of your most shocking moments?
God, there's been so many.
I can
And
only
that's
imagine.
why I say that with a heavy heart, because
God.
it's just, I think it's just hard. It's the levels of humiliation, the embarrassment, just the scale of what they've been through. That can be hard.
Okay.
And again, I go back to what I said to you earlier. It's then when you've got that little person or that young person in front of you, and you look at them and you see their, it's all there. That's hard.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And what about one of your proudest moments?
I think it's just when you have kids that leave and that are just, they've got their sass back, and they're
I just think it's so brilliant. I think
and they're
it's so
giving
brilliant.
you, they actually want to give you a hug and say goodbye, and they're giving you a bit of lip, and they're kind of, you've got a bit of, you've got that young person back, and that's the great bit. I had one of my girls say that was going to a Halloween party dressed as me, and this is someone who was kind of, not confident in any way, but now is able to have those conversations.
Wow.
So just that spirit back again. It's great.
I'm so pleased, and I'm so pleased that yourself and your charity agreed to coming onto the podcast, because I know sometimes I'm putting out things that are pushing the boundaries, but I'm just trying to get everybody represented on this podcast, and something that we never think about. Honestly, we are so victim focused, necessarily so, rightly so. We are victim focused, but the conversation is victim focused too. But this is a team, like what you're saying at your charity. This is a venture this is a team effort, right? And the victims, we are so sad for and horrified that even happened to them. I'm one of them, but also it's everybody that's trying to make change, and charities like Brave Futures and incredible people that work within these charities like yourself, doing the frontline work, supporting these young people, trying to give them some empowerment, encouragement, and a different way forward. So from me personally, I thank you for the work that you do.
You're welcome. I love my job.
Can you tell us what Brave Futures website is?
Hang on, Hannah's now frantically writing it down for me. bravefutures.org. Bravefutures.org.
Okay, amazing. So if anybody would like to check out what the charity's website and a bit more about what they're doing, please go to bravefutures.org. I've spoken at their conference before. I know that they're doing incredible work, and you can see from this conversation here that they are unsung heroes, frontline workers really doing the work for the victims, the young victims, to give them a better life. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm so thankful to Brave Futures for coming onto my podcast, because I know some people deem me as controversial because I push the boundaries of this conversation. But if you follow my work, you know my intention. It is just to open this conversation. And with this podcast, I wanted to give a shout out and show some respect to those that are working on the front line with those young children who have been through a sexual abuse situation, to help them live the rest of their life. I believe that you're going to agree with me that they are unsung heroes, and this podcast was definitely worth a listen, and definitely worth a share with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone else that you think would find value in it, or even just find it interesting. So if you'd like to support my work, please go visit jeremyindica.com and somethingtosayofficial.com. We got so many sides to this project. This is a journey, this is an adventure, and as a team we can achieve anything we set our mind to. I truly believe it. Thank you.